Namaskara to all of you, and welcome to our next session on the Yogic Life. So, if you recall, we last week we talked about Sattvik Ahara. So, there is a little bit more I would like to share on the same topic of Sattvik Ahara. So, we in the last week we mentioned that there are two kinds of foods, one that comes from plants and the other that comes from animals. And when you look at the foods that come from plants, it can be any vegetable like potatoes or any fruit like pears, bananas, grapes, or cabbage or eggplant. It can be any of it. So all of it have the similar nutritional breakdown, right? So there are essentially two types of nutrients. One is the macronutrients and the other is the micronutrients. Macronutrients are those that contain calories, and micronutrients, they contain they're like the vitamins and the minerals and phytochemicals, right, and many other things. So they do not have calories in them. So the nutrients that have calories are the macronutrients, and they are essentially the carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Right? Carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Those are the three things. They are all called macronutrients. So anything that comes from plants, they have 80% carbohydrates, 10% fat, and 10% protein. 80-10-10 is the ratio generally we see in the plants. That can be fruits, vegetables, beans, and grains. So there could be some variation, but the overall trend is that it is 80-10-10, right? So anything that comes from an animal, on the other hand, doesn't have any carbohydrates, zero carbohydrates. The 100% of the calories in case of animal products, they come from that is 10%, that is 60% fat and 40% protein, or it could be 40%, 60% protein and 40% fat, one of the two, in some variation of that. That will be the ratio for the nutrition profile for the animal products. Animal products do not have any carbohydrates. That's something that you need to note. Right? Even when we talk about vegetable oil, it is vegetable oil, even though it is coming from plants, but it is 100% fat, doesn't have any protein or any carbohydrates or any other nutrition from oil. Right? So that is the breakdown, right? So this we already talked about it last week. So I just want to recall or remind you guys. And then we also started talking about energy, right? We said that we need energy to function. The body needs energy to function. So where does that energy come? That energy comes from the food, right? So what kind of food this energy comes? The body gets 100% of its energy from carbohydrates. That's a very, very key point that we should remember. It gets 100% of the energy from carbohydrates, nothing from protein and nothing from fat. So in biology, there is a cycle called as the Krebs cycle. And in the Krebs cycle, energy is produced in the body. And the energy that is actually produced from the food that we take, the food goes through a cycle, and the energy that is produced for the body to function is called as the ATP. The ATP, which is the result, that is the energy, is called as ATP. ATP is the name of the energy in the body. It is something that comes out of the Krebs cycle. And so what is the fuel for the Krebs cycle? The fuel for the Krebs cycle from which the energy is produced, the fuel is the glucose. And the glucose, how does this glucose come? The glucose comes from the carbohydrates. Glucose is the breakdown product of carbohydrates. All carbohydrates, it is basically fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. All of this get broken down to glucose, and all the carbohydrates in those foods like fruits, grains, vegetables, and beans, that is 80% of the calories that we get from the fruits, grains, beans, and vegetables. They are carbohydrates, and they get broken down to glucose. And this is the glucose that goes into the Krebs cycle and produces energy, and our body functions with that energy. But when this is what happens when you eat plant-based diet, whole food plant-based diet. This is what happens. But on the other hand, when you take animal products, which can be like meat, chicken, fish, eggs, milk, oil, cheese, any of these, it can be, the ratio, the nutritional profile is 60-40. 60% 60% fat and 40% protein or some ratio of that. It has zero carbohydrates. So when this goes into the Krebs cycle, there is no energy that is getting produced. One does not get energy in the body by eating the animal products, because the food does not get broken down into glucose. So then what happens is that, so there are only two types of food: the food that comes from animals and the food that comes from plants. If it comes from plants, 80% of the calories are carbohydrates, which get broken down to glucose and which creates energy. And if it comes from animals, zero carbohydrates, zero energy. You don't get any energy. So the only thing that we get is the protein and the fat, and neither of these can get easily broken down to glucose. So glucose, creating glucose, which is the only ingredient that can produce energy in the body. So the energy in the body is produced from the glucose, right? And creating the glucose from protein and fat is very expensive. It's very the body needs a lot of extra steps to do that, right? The body does not like to do that. Body is not generally used to doing that, so it doesn't like to do that. It has to go through all kinds of extra steps, and so it doesn't do that. So then what happens is that when you eat a lot of animal products, when you eat a lot of fat, and what happens is that the body says it doesn't know how to handle that fat. So what it does, it just puts the fat on your thighs, your hips, your stomach, your back. So those are the places where people get really overweight, right? And they get overweight from the fat from the animal products. So when you look at the plant-based diet, the vegetables have a very small amount of fat. They have only 10% of fat. On the other hand, when we look at vegetable oil, right, 100% fat. There is no carbohydrates, no energy, nothing. 100% fat, and that fat is absolutely useless for the body. It's not required. That fat is actually destructive. It has no benefit. It is not a natural food for human beings. So that is why vegetable oil doesn't grow in the field. If you just think about any of the oil that you buy from a store, the oil is actually produced from vegetables. It's produced from plants. You have to take a huge amount of the crop, and like whatever oil it may be that you're talking about, you have to take a huge amount of the crop, and then the crop is crushed, and a small amount of oil is produced. Like let's say a bottle of oil. For that you need to take a huge amount of the crop, crush it, and a huge amount of the food gets wasted in that process. And the oil doesn't have any nutrition at all. Making 1 liter of oil, huge amount of crop, and making a huge waste of all the stuff that is there in the plant, all the nutrition that is there in the plant, and all of that is all gone to waste. You're just throwing it out in the garbage and just extracting that oil to make this something extremely artificial nutrient, which is 100% fat, which the body has no use for, right? So that is what we talked about, how the body gets the energy. So moving further, I'm just going to mute Shirisha. Okay. So also I was actually talking about nuts. I was saying that it is okay to have a little bit of nuts, but the thing that I wanted to highlight is that most people eat roasted nuts. So that is what happens is that when you eat roasted nuts, that means you're frying the nuts to high temperature. So then what happens, the oil in the nuts gets carcinogen. So then that is actually harmful for you. So if you want to eat nuts, it's okay to eat nuts, but then you have to eat raw nuts. So you have to make sure that the nuts that you buy from the shop, from the store, is just raw nuts, just as it came from the field. You should not buy roasted nuts, because when the roasted nuts, they get fried to or roasted to a very high temperature, which is not good for you. Okay, so then we said that, what about protein and fat? So the vegetables and plants, they have 10% protein, 10% fat. On the other hand, animals have 60% fat and 40% protein. So the question is, does the body need protein and fat? So the thing is that we do need a small amount of protein and small amount of fat. The small amount of the fat that you get from vegetable, like the 10% of the fat that you get from the vegetable. So the vegetable contains something called as fatty acids that are called linoleic and linoleic acid, right? The small amount of fat contained in fruits and vegetables, grains and beans is the type of fat that the human beings need. We actually don't need much of fat. We just need little bit of fat, and that fat we get from the fruits, grains and vegetables and beans, right? So we have in our body certain hormones and different things that we make from the fat in those foods, right? We actually don't need much of fat, and what we need is a particular type of fat, and that type of fat is not present in meat, eggs, cow's milk or any milk products. The fat that we need is actually present in fruits and vegetables, and the fat that is present in animal products, they are not linoleic or linoleic acid, the essential fatty acids, right? The what we need we get from the plants, not from the animals. The small amount of fat that we do need we get from plants, and right, so the talking about the protein, right? The small amount of protein that we get from plants is needed for the body, because the tissues in the body, like the muscles, they are made from the protein. So the 10% fat that we get from the vegetables and plants, they are adequate for our muscles and for our tissues, right? So the muscles and tissues, they are all made from the protein. The proteins are the building blocks for the tissue. So when people are not growing up, right? So when people are not growing up, so let's say from 25 years, or let's say from 20 years to 20 years onwards, we are not growing anymore, right? Then our need for protein goes down drastically. So when we are not gaining weight anymore, like for instance, when you look at a 2-month-old baby, right, who is breastfeeding, so that kind of a baby which is breastfeeding needs a lot of protein, lot of fat, right? Because it is gaining weight very quickly. So mother's milk has different nutrient composition which is essential for the baby. So a baby has a different nutrient needs when compared to a 25-year-old or a 50-year-old person, because the 25-year-old or a 50-year-old is not growing anymore, right? So we don't need the same kind of a breakdown from the food that a baby needs, because the baby is growing drastically, whereas when we are adults, we don't need that much of fat and that much of protein which is there in milk or milk products. So essentially what we are saying is we don't need milk. A 2-month-old baby is doubling his weight every few months. It's growing extremely quickly. So it is building a lot of tissue, building muscles, building bones. Everything is getting bigger by the day. So it needs a lot more protein and lot more fat. So according to that requirement, mother's milk has everything that it needs. But then once we are grown, we don't need those things. We look at animals, only when they're babies they take the mother's milk. When you look at a calf, it takes mother's milk only when it is a baby. But then when it is grown up, then it doesn't eat. They no longer takes mother's milk. Like for instance, a cow, an adult cow. Have you ever seen an adult cow having mother's milk? No. So when you look at animals, all the animals, they take mother's milk only when they are very young. After that, they stop taking mother's milk. But human beings are the only ones that take milk, right? Even after we are grown up. So the thing is that we only need a very, very small amount of protein, small amount of fat. So people generally don't get protein deficiency. Nobody gets deficient in protein. It's actually impossible. If you're getting enough calories, most of those who are eating meat, they have the myth about getting protein from the meat, right? That is a myth that they're getting protein from the meat. So it's not true. We only need a very small amount of protein, and that we can get from small amount of protein and small amount of fat, and that we can get from fruits, vegetables, grains and beans. So we don't need any extra protein or extra fat from oil or from any animal products like milk or any other animal products. Okay, so that is what I wanted to tell. So when you take animal products, you're getting 100. When you're taking oil, particularly oil, you get 100% of the calories from the fat, and that is not a proper nutrient breakdown for the human being. So when we eat all these fried foods, that we're getting all excess fat which is not required, and the body doesn't know how to handle that fat, and then that's how we get overweight, right? Human beings should have 80% carbohydrates, 10% fat and 10% protein. And if you take a vegetarian meal, which has these whole foods, plant based, then you get what you need. On the other hand, when you take a vegetarian meal and you put vegetable oil into it, you fry the vegetables in vegetable oil, then what you're doing is you're completely disrupting the nutritional composition of that food, right? So the nutritional profile, you're kind of disrupting the nutritional profile of that food. So when you eat only the whole foods, plant based, you will see that the food is very, very light. Then if you have experimented, you will know that the food is very light without using oil, right? It will digest very quickly. The mind will be extremely alert after ingesting the food. So we all have to consider our body as a prayogashala, as an experiment room, and we have to see what happens when we change our diet. So also a few things that I would like to mention over here is that so even if somebody is taking, like, some people were mentioning that I take only very little bit of oil, right? So you may be taking a small amount of oil, even if it's a small amount of oil, but then what happens is that you put the oil in a kadai and then you heat it up to high temperatures, and then you put the spices into it and you sizzle the spices. If that is what you're doing, like you're taking oil, putting turmeric, you're putting cumin, and you're putting all the coriander and all the other spices, and you're frying those spices in the oil, even if it's like just 1 teaspoon of oil, then what you're doing is you're creating carcinogens by heating that oil to very high temperature, and that is extremely harmful. It is cancer promoting, right? So the recommendation is that not to take any oil, but if people are wanting to take oil, right, they're wanting to take oil, then what I mean, I would not want to take oil, but if people want to take oil, then what we could suggest is that you cook the food in water, and then later on, after the food is cooked, then you can add a little bit of oil. Maybe half a teaspoon of oil you can add into the food after you cook the food. But just putting the oil in the pan and heating to high temperature and then putting the spices and everything, that is not actually good. That is not good for your health. That is extremely harmful for you. So we can easily cook vegetables in water, right? You can cook the vegetables. You can actually take a little bit of water in a pot, and then you can put the spices, and then after that, even mustards also, in just the plain pan, the mustard will start bursting. You don't need to put oil. Then you can put a little bit of water, you can put all your spices, and then you can put the vegetables and cook in the water. There is no need to put any oil. And if people insist that I want to put oil, then you put the oil after you cook the vegetables. Don't heat the oil to high temperature. When you heat the oil to high temperature, that is extremely harmful to you, right? First of all, the refined oil that we are using is already heated to extreme temperatures when they are in the plants and in the factories when they're being produced. So that itself is extremely harmful. All the the nutrients in the food is completely getting wasted when the let's say sunflower seeds, they're heated to high temperatures to produce oil. In that heating process, the nutrition is completely lost, right? And it is already heated to high temperature, and it's already very bad for you. And then on top of it, when you're again taking it and putting in a pan and heating it again, that's it. It doesn't have anything. It's completely a poison for you, right? So that was thing about oil. And also cooking with water is actually very easy. Sometimes because we are so used to cooking with oil, we don't know how to cook. I mean, how can somebody cook with water? That is the first question that comes to mind. I mean, is it even possible? We don't know how to cook with oil, but actually it is very easy. We can easily cook with oil. It's not difficult at all. It's in our mind. We're thinking because systematically this is how we have to do. We have been thinking, we have been brought up like that. So we can easily change that oil with water, little bit of water, and you can put all your spices, your turmeric, coriander, everything, and then put the vegetables in it and cook. It will be exactly the same. There will be no difference. And even after that, if people insist that I want to have oil, then you put the oil in the last. Don't heat it to high temperature. So that is what I would suggest. And also, one thing that I would say is in our I might have mentioned that this is required for a yogi. So I want to clarify that this is not required for a yogi. This food is not only for a yogi. So a yogi here does not, I mean, when we say the food is required for a yogi, what does a yogi mean? Yogi doesn't mean somebody who is living in a cave in the Himalayas and who is implementing this in the Himalayas. No. Yogi means you and I who are implementing the principles of yoga. That is a yogi, right? It doesn't have to be like the moment I say that, these are the changes I have to do in terms of Sattvik Ahara, then people say, no, I am living in the world and these are not suitable for me. My kids will not like it. My wife will not like it. My husband will not like it. My family, my parents will not like it. So the thing is that the diet that we are talking is the diet that we're talking for all of us. It is the diet for human beings. It's not a diet for just somebody who's living in the caves in the Himalayas. That we should remember. So people have a wrong notion when they say yogi means somebody who's living in the mountains, who's a sannyasi, who's a recluse, who has sacrificed the world and is gone. No, we're not talking of such a person. Such a person is not a yogi. Yogi is somebody who's living in the world, and is implementing all of these principles of yoga in his life. And what we are talking over here is what is actually good for your health. Even if you're not into spirituality, the thing that we're talking, if you want to lead a healthy and a long life, right, without having any of the lifestyle related diseases, diabetes, etc., and also if you want to have your mind alert, even when you're 80 years old, if you want to have your mind very alert, not having Alzheimer's or dementia and all the other mental diseases, this kind of diet is very, very important. This diet will help you have your digestion system in a perfect state, right? You will not have any issues with your digestion. Your digestion will be so good. You yourself will feel that your stomach is so light and the food is getting digested very easily, right? Because these days you see a lot of people have digestion related issues. They're not able to eat, their stomach is burning, they have this irritable bowel syndrome. You just talk to the people, the youngsters these days, even at the age of 30, because of wrong eating habits, they get all sorts of issues, and it is very, very sad that people are getting the wrong education from the society, and therefore they end up going and eating in the restaurants and fast foods and whatnot, right? So I want to clarify here that we are all yogis here. So we are all yogis here who are implementing the principles of yoga. They are all yogis. So so yoga means that our goal of life is very clear to us, right? We all have an infinite desire, and ultimately our goal of life is to realize the infinite, to become one with that infinite. And for that we should adopt everything. We should do everything that we do in our life should be in such a way, in such a direction that it helps us to realize our ultimate goal. It helps us to realize the infinite. And using oil is not going to help. Having milk products is not going to help us. It is just because somebody is used to it, right, doesn't mean that it is good. It's just because somebody has been brought up like that, somebody's family has been used to doing that, and we have been trained like that, doesn't mean it is good for us. Habits can be changed, right? Like in India, I think I mentioned last week also, in India, like people right nowadays, we were like, if you see 15 years back, people were used to eating only the Indian food, right, whether it is spicy or whatnot. People were used to eating only Indian food. Now if you see, There are a lot of so many fast food restaurants from the West. You have McDonald's, you have this, you have pizza, you have pasta, you have all sorts of food, and people have developed a taste for it. And people say, like, you ask somebody's kid, they will say, what do you like? They say, I like pizza, I like pizza, I like pasta. Do you think we were raised eating pizza and pasta? No. Have we not acquired a taste for it? So for that, we will not say that, it is not my habit, it's not my habit. We have developed a taste for it. How come we developed a taste for it? But when it comes to the yogic diet, we say, no, I'm not used to it. I don't like it. How come we say that? How come we have not developed a taste for it? So it's essentially within us. We can develop a taste even for the yogic food, just like we have developed a taste for pizza and pasta and noodles and whatnot, right? So it is just a matter of training ourselves. It is just a matter of being persistent. It's in our brain that this food is not tasty. That is what it is. So when you slowly start eating this food over and over, you will start enjoying the taste. It is really very tasty. It is the real taste in the food and not the artificial taste that we are used to it. So this artificial taste, it is a taste only temporary in your tongue, and then after that, when it goes down your stomach, it is very, very harmful for you. It is not tasty for the body. But the whole food plant-based diet is actually tasty for the tongue, and also it's tasty for the body. It is actually, when I say tasty for the body, I mean it is actually good for your body, right? So if you actually look at a baby, if you look at a baby, when it is born, it is not wanting food with oil in it, right? They do not want, are you giving spicy food to the baby? Are you giving food with lot of oil in it? No. We are not born with this taste. So we have acquired this taste. So actually, what I want to say over here is that yogi, the person who has realized, who has come to understand what the goal of their life is, they are going to realize that the food is the fuel that they need to give their body to allow them to realize their ultimate goal. It is no longer going to be the object of pleasure, right? At the same time, I want to say that the food, the Sattvik diet that we're talking, is not going to be tasteless. It is not. It's not that it's tasteless and it's not enjoyable, right? So when if you get used to it, within a short period of time, you will realize that this is the best food. This is the extremely tasty food. This is the food that is extremely tasty, extremely flavorful, very, very nice. It is because we're used to the wrong taste, the artificial flavors. Our tongue has lost its taste for the natural food, right? So that is why we feel the artificial food is extremely tasty, but it is not so. When you start developing a taste for this food is extremely tasty. You will realize you don't need salt, you don't need any of it. Just the food, the fruits and vegetables as they come from the farm, the whole food plant-based diet is extremely tasty. It's very beautiful, it is flavorful, and it is very good for your body as well and for your mind. So when we start adjusting what we eat to the proper food, then our taste buds change, because so far we have been used to the wrong diet, right? We were not born with the taste buds that we have right now, right? Those are all the tastes that we developed. But then when we start eating pure fruits, grains, vegetables and beans, then our taste buds will start adjusting. That right, people say that this food is very bland, it's not tasting, there's no flavor and all that. That is because you got used to the wrong taste, right? So we were not born wanting all of these things like onion, garlic and the spices and all that. We just got used to them. Just like somebody gets used to smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol or eating meat. So that is how we've got used to it. So the first time somebody smokes a cigarette, they don't like it. They don't like it. They start coughing and they don't like it. Then slowly they try one more time. Even though they don't like it, they try it again. Right? First time they try it, they don't like it. Right? Have they stopped it because they didn't like it? No. Even though they don't like it, they still try it. Why? Because they're attracted towards it. They try it again. And then the second time also they may not like it that much, but then the third time they start trying it again, and then they slowly start liking it, and then they get hooked to it. They get addicted to it. How come they didn't like it in the first time, and then they started taking it, and then they started liking it so much that they cannot live without it? So the same thing, if you apply to food, Sattvik diet, initially it will be like, I don't like it. it's not good, and we stop it. Unlike with this case of cigarettes, we stop the sattvic diet, which is actually good for us, thinking it's not tasting good, right? But we should not give up. We should try again. And the second time, the third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, sixth time, seventh time, yes, now I'm starting to like it. It's actually good. It's not bad. It's not without any taste, right? So the same thing, when you first time avoid the food without onion and garlic, you might say, oh no, it's not going to taste good, right? But slowly, when you keep trying it, then what happens is that this is the food that we actually like. Our taste buds will change, and we will want these foods. Like for instance, a person, he decides to quit smoking. Then what he'll do is that he'll quit smoking. He'll quit the cigarette. Then initially he will be like, oh my god, his body will be like so much wanting for the cigarette. The first 2-3 days will be very difficult, or maybe even 1 month will be difficult. But slowly, then when he completely stops, when he applies the discipline into his life, then there will be a point in time where he will not want cigarettes anymore. He will not want to go near it. He will not want to even stand the smoke, right? So that is what happens. So they will ultimately become repulsed by that cigarette later on. So when they free themselves from that, the same way when you free yourself from the oil, the onion, garlic, milk, and all those products which we don't need anymore, right? Then you will realize that you don't need any of those. Because right now you don't realize it because you've gotten so used to it. But then when you stop it, then you will come to realize it that your body does not want any of those things. So now if you place some, even a puri in front of me, right? If everybody else is eating the puri also, my mind doesn't go there. My mind is like, no, I don't even want it. I'm not even attracted towards puri, or I'm not even attracted towards anything that is fried, because now my body knows. My body is completely saying, no, this is a foreign thing that I don't need for my body, right? So that is what I'm saying, is that initially, yes, it will look difficult. It will be like, no, I'm not used to it. But then you should not give up. You should keep trying. It's something very similar to alcohol and smoking cigarettes. It's not any different, right? I'm not saying that the onion and garlic and all are like cigarettes, but I'm saying it is in terms of trying to stop. It's exactly the same thing. It is a similar phenomenon, right? That the body got used to something that it was not designed to take. It started to like it, and so now it starts to miss it the first time that it does not have it. But then once you stop it, once you free yourself from that, you will no longer want it, because it's not a natural proclivity of the human being to take those foods. Like oil is just like cigarettes, right? So there are different ways to stop things. One can do it gradually, or one can go all of a sudden. But the thing that we are recommending is that to do it all of a sudden, that is the best thing, is to get rid of those things. And so just as in the case of cigarettes, if you want to stop smoking, we are not going to say, oh, get rid of cigarettes slowly. First you get rid, if you're smoking 2 packs, then come to 1 pack, and then come to half a pack. No. When you want to get rid of cigarettes, you have to throw it completely, because it's a poison for you. You just have to throw it. Similarly, all of these foods which are not good for you, you have to get rid of them. Get rid of them from your mind. Get rid of them from your house. That is the best way to do. But then if you say, no, I cannot do that like that, I want to do it gradually, then if that is the choice that you have taken, then then that also we can make it work. So gradually, then you take one particular item like onion or garlic, just get rid of it first, and then see how you feel, and then slowly start implementing the other things also, right? I think in all the foods, that is the most difficult for people is the salt. I think people can eat even without oil, but eating without salt is probably the most difficult. And for people who feel that it's the most difficult, I cannot do it once and for all of a sudden I cannot do it. If you feel like that, that's the best approach that we're recommending. But if you feel, or if you insist that I cannot do it all of a sudden, then in that case, what I suggest is that you reduce your salt significantly. If you're taking one spoon, just completely reduce it, make it to very little salt. That's not recommended, but just to encourage you guys, I'm saying that you will start with reducing the salt, right? Okay. So, do you have any questions over here? If not, we can go to the next item in the food. So the next thing is the caffeine, right? Caffeine is also the same thing. Those who drink caffeine, whether it's tea, coffee, right? They feel they need it. They cannot be without it, right? They feel if I don't drink it, I'm going to get headache, because these are all addiction. Whether it is caffeine, cigarettes, meat, cheese, oil, onion, garlic, they all have the same type of effect. They're very addictive. So if you don't have them, you feel the lack of it, then you go without it for the first time, right? If you don't have it, then you feel like I cannot be without it. Oh my God, my head is aching if I have not had a coffee. But then once you free yourself from that, then your taste buds will also change, and you will not want those things. So the first few days will be difficult. No doubt it will be difficult, right? But then if you are persistent and if you have the discipline, you will be able to free yourself from all of these addictions. We do not want to be addicted to any of these, right? So when you start eating more and more the yogic diet, then your body, your taste buds, everything will shift over that, right? Once you do that, then you cannot convince such a person to have oil or have fried food like puri or pakoda, or have anything that has the milk products and all that, right? They will not have any desire to eat any of those things, right? Because once upon a time we liked those things, and now our lives have changed. This is what happens in life also, right? There are things that we used to love a lot, and after a period of time now we don't like it anymore. So the same thing will happen to all of these foods, like the meat, cheese, oil, onion, garlic, any of it, right? You will come to a stage where you'll be like, I don't like it anymore, I don't want to eat this, right? So in that stage, like now if you ask me now, after having tried the Sattvik diet for a considerable amount of time, now if you ask me what would you like, automatically the first thing that comes to my mind is the fruits and the vegetables. That's what comes to my mind, nothing else comes to my mind, right? Even having rice also is the last thing. Even having the cooked rice is the last thing. If you ask me, what if you're hungry, what do you want to eat, the first thing that comes to my mind is the fruits and the vegetables. So those my body's got so used to those tastes of the fruits and vegetables, that nothing else seems appetizing. If you keep 100 different things in front of me, automatically my mind goes first to the fruits and vegetables, because that's how you've trained your mind now, right? So that's really the thing, is the body wants the raw fruits and vegetables. They have so much of nutrients in them. So even like even though we're saying it's okay to cook, right? Even though that is not recommended, if you want to cook, even that it's still sattvic. It's not rajasic or tamasic. Even if you cook your fruits and if you cook your vegetables, right, it is still sattvic. But then what happens is, when you cook your vegetables to high temperature, you're actually destroying that vegetable. The vegetable has lot of vitamins and lot of phytochemicals and so many different nutrients, right? That 100% of those things gets destroyed by the heat, right? So but when you're eating a raw vegetable or a raw fruit, you're giving your body you're actually helping your body by eating it raw, because you're not losing all those vitamins and those minerals and those phytochemicals, right? But by heating, you're losing all of this. So that is why it is why are we heating it? We are heating it just for the taste, right? Because we're only used to eating cooked food, we don't like the taste of raw. That is why we are heating, right? But then when you start getting used to the raw taste, then you will not even want to cook food, right? The taste of the cooked vegetable is actually an acquired taste. It is an imposed taste. You were not born with those tastes, right? Those are all acquired tastes. That is what you got used to it. So this desire for these cooked things, right, we learned it from our parents, and they learned it from their parents. So these are all acquired tastes. These are all tastes that we have learnt. So you have to understand this point, right? The things that you are enjoying now, you were not born wanting those things. So if you stop eating those things, your body will also stop wanting them, right? So we might have eaten all different things before and we had the taste for it, but then when you change the taste, then automatically the taste buds will change, and after a considerable amount of time your desires also will change, right? You will not want any of those things. You will actually find those things disgusting, right? So uh, so the point on oil is that the recommendation is to get rid of oil, because your body will thank you and your taste buds will stop wanting it. uh, the So the only reason we are putting oil in the food is because for taste, because when you fry it in oil, it is tasty. That is why we are wanting it, right? It is just for taste, and that taste is acquired taste. It is not our original taste, right? And we are not wanting oil because of nutrition. We are wanting oil because of the taste, right? And not because the body wants those things, right? The body actually doesn't want those things, right? It is just for the taste that we want the salt, we want the onion, garlic. Everything is for the taste, right? Not from a nutrition perspective. And that taste is not something that we were born with, right? That is an acquired taste. That's a very, very important point. Like just like we have acquired taste for pizza and pasta and everything, the taste for oil and salt, all of it is an acquired taste. We were not born wanting those tastes. And so just like somebody who smokes cigarettes, they were not born wanting it, they got used to it, right? The same thing with oil, the salt and sugar and everything. But once we get rid of it, we will revert to our actual natural state of existence, and we will not want it anymore. So I can tell you this from my own experience. Right? After you start this Sattvik diet, then you will not want to go any of those things, right? So okay. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. So moving forward, I want to talk a little bit of this overweight and diabetes, right? So particularly if you look at the diet of people who are living in the cities, whether it is in India or whether in other countries, we look at the people who are living in the cities, you find there is a huge population who are overweight and diabetic, right? If you look in India also, diabetes is very, very rampant in India, right? You see a lot of people who are overweight and diabetic. This 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 does not come from Diabetes does not come from eating carrots, right? We have already talked about it. It comes from eating oil, ghee, cheese, salt. It's coming from all of those things, right? It is coming from the paneer, oil, ghee and salt. That is where this is coming from. We are not designed to eat those things, and eating those things, actually eating the oil and ghee and cheese and paneer and all that, actually makes you overweight. And so not only taking too much of it makes people overweight, but actually we don't need any of it. The notion about lubrication from oil is actually a myth. It's a complete myth. Whatever oil that we need, we do get from the whole foods and plant-based diet, right? It is a myth that we get lubrication from oil. Oil has no nutritional value. There is no need to take any of those things, right? So if somebody were to say that we need oil, we need ghee, right? We need ghee for our body. My ancestors were taking ghee. We need ghee for our body. Then somebody needs to prove that what is in that ghee, the nutritional profile that we need in our body, that we're not getting it from plants and vegetables. We need to prove it scientifically. This is just a tale that comes from generation to generation. They actually don't know, right? So somebody might have said and somebody might have said, and that's how it is. It comes from generation. But this is just it is just a myth that we need oil for lubrication. Whatever oil we need, we can get from nuts, we can get from plant-based diet, right? We should base our knowledge of food on science. There is nothing in any of these foods like oil and ghee and all that that we cannot get from plants and vegetables. Okay, so the vegetarian diet or a sattvic diet means coming from vegetables, and milk has nothing to do with vegetables. So milk is not a vegetarian diet. If people say I'm a vegetarian and they say I take milk, then you cannot be vegetarian, because milk is not a vegetarian, is not it doesn't come from vegetables, it's coming from an animal, right? So the overweight and diabetes comes from ghee, oil, paneer, cheese. So we are not designed to eat those things. We need energy for the body, and that comes from carbohydrates, and carbohydrates come from plants and vegetables, plants and fruits, right, and grains and beans. So eating all of these foods, oil, animal products, meat, everything makes you overweight. When you become overweight, automatically you get diabetes, right? And people say that diabetes coming from genes. That is also not correct. Diabetes comes from your lifestyle, from your food, from the food that you eat, right? So also another thing that I want to talk about is the company products. If it comes from an ingredient, and if it comes in a box with ingredients, so any food that comes in a box with ingredients, just don't buy it, right? Because those are all manufactured by companies. Those companies do not have your interest in mind, right? It can be chips or cookies or biscuits or anything. If it has it is in a box and it has ingredients and it has a company name, then just don't buy it, because those people do not have your interest in mind. They do not care about your health. They do not care about you nor your health. They only care about making money, right? They make that product. That's why it's called as a product. It's called as a product. It's not a food. It is processed. It is a processed food. You should not buy it. It's not good for you, for your kids. It's not good for your kids as well. It is extremely harmful, whether it is biscuits, cakes, pastries, pizza, what not, right? It is really not a good product for your health or for your kids. They are extremely harmful. So do not buy any products that come with a label. If it has an ingredient list, don't buy it. So we are here on this planet to realize the infinite within us, and those companies have no idea about those things, and also they have no interest in those things, right? All they care about is money, right? So that I want to talk about not having company products. Okay, oh yeah, company products. Okay, so this is what I said. So anything that comes in a box with ingredients, then don't buy it, because they don't have your interest in mind. They're just to make money. And also the company products are dominated by oil, sugar and salt. These are the three ingredients they are dominated by, because they make you addicted to those products, because the companies will always include ingredients which make you addicted to those products. That is why if you see, and if you had a packet of chips which has a company label on it, you will never be satisfied by eating one packet. After eating one packet, you'll always be wanting more. Why? Because they have lot of ingredients which are addictive, right? As a result, you might have noticed your kids also, right? After having a biscuit, they will always want more, right? Because the biscuits have so much of salt, sugar, oil and other artificial flavors which make them very, very addictive, right? The more you consume, the more the company makes profit. So those people have they don't have your interest in mind. And also the company products have an entirely different vibration, right? We talked about this. All foods have a spandan, right? All foods have spandan. So we'll talk about that. So what I was actually saying is that the company foods are dominated by oil, sugar and salt, right? The three of them. That's why we call them as like namkeen, or we call them as sweet, right? Those are all added. The salt, oil and sugar are all added to entice people, to make people addicted to those things. They have zero nutritional value, right? So what I suggest is, when you go to the store, just go to the section where you have fruits, grains, beans and vegetables. Just buy that and just come out straight. Don't even venture out into other areas, because only when you venture out in other areas you feel like you want to buy. Only when you go to the section where you have the chips and biscuits and all that, you want to buy those things. So don't even go to that aisle. Just go to the aisle where you have these fruits, grains, beans, and vegetables. Just buy that and come out. Right? When you do that, when you start developing that kind of habit, then you're not even attracted to any of these things. So when you go to those places and when you're looking at those, your mind may be attracted to those things. So don't even go to those places, right? In the initial stages, don't even go to those places. But after you are stabilized in this diet, then even if you go there, you're fine. You're not going to be attracted to that, right? So the recommendation is eat fruits, grains, and vegetables in their raw state, and when they're processed, that is their more refined state, which is not good for your health. So avoid company products. Do not buy anything if it comes in a box, right? They're made of sugar, salt, and oil. Those are the three things that anybody who is making a company product uses in order to make you addicted and attracted. Right? They don't care about anybody's welfare. They're just there to make money and nothing else. And so we are talking about getting rid of oil, sugar, and salt. So when we're talking about that, obviously we should not take company products because those are loaded with them, oil, sugar, and salt, right? We should be eating complex carbohydrates. That is 80% of calories that get broken down into glucose from carbohydrates. That does not mean, see, the carbohydrates getting converted to glucose. That does not mean I'm going to go to the store and buy glucose and start taking it. No, we should buy the food as they grew in the field, right? So so just the food as they grew in the field. So the food that the fruits and vegetables, when you take them, they get broken down to glucose in the body, right? So that is not, they're getting broken down to glucose. That does not mean I'm going to go to the store and buy sugar and start taking sugar. No, that does not mean that. If you take something, if you go to the store and buy sugar and start eating it, and it is not going to have the same nutritional benefit as the fruits and vegetables, right? So whether it is a potato, they have all kinds of things in it that biscuits don't have, that a cookie or a cake doesn't have, right? So any company product, you have to completely say no to company products, right? And then I was also talking about the spandan, right? The company products, they have a completely different vibration. Where we talked about this whole world is gatishil. Gatishil means the whole, there is a movement in this whole world. Nothing is stable, right? Everything keeps moving. Everything constantly changes. Every object in this world is going through this process of evolution. Everything is moving. Everything is slowly changing, and everything has a vibration. The entire world is spandanatmak, and the food that we eat is also spandanatmak. The food that we eat is also having a vibration to its existence. So the cells in our body is all made of the food that we eat. So if we are having food that has a crude vibration made by some company people who themselves are not vegetarians, then let's say that the product is made by some people who are eating hamburgers and hot dogs, and they go to Burger King, McDonald's, and God knows what they eat. So after eating, their mind is very, very crude, and they are making these products, and that is what we are consuming. Then the impact of that will be on our mind as well, right? Those people they do all kinds of nonsense in their entire life, and that's what they're eating, all meat and other products. They're drinking, and they're spending their time in discotheques and whatnot. Those are the kind of people who are making the products. If the products are being made by them, and their hands and minds are involved in those products, and we do not want to eat those kind of foods. Those are not the food for a yogi. Okay, so the company products, they do not have good spandan, they don't have nutritional benefit, and they also don't have any vibrational benefit, right? Nothing. So if you eat a raw tomato or a raw vegetable, it has so much of a nutritional value. Okay. So when you eat company product, you're actually cheating yourself. You're cheating your body. Yeah. Sharda Bhagini had a question.
I just had a doubt. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
Can I?
Yeah.
What are these phytochemicals you mentioned?
So it is just like the fruits and vegetables. They have a lot of minerals and vitamins, and phytochemicals are the nutrients which the body requires. So you can actually Google and see what exactly the meaning of phytochemical is.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry,
Let me tell you what it is.
question. Is it okay?
See, there are the chemicals of plant origin. Chemicals of plant origin are produced by the plant, right?
Got it.
They play a role in the plant growth, right? And those phytochemicals are good for our body. Are the natural chemicals in plant-based foods. The foods that have, yeah, it's natural chemicals present in plants.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Sorry for the interruption.
No worries, Bhagini. No worries. Yeah. Yeah, actually, good question. Phytochemicals. Yeah, I'm okay. Any other question? So far, anything you guys want to add? Okay. So
Bhagini,
yeah.
1 minute. Please show the percentage of carbohydrates: 80%, 10% protein, and 10% fat. Am I right?
Yeah. 10% fat. The fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. They have 80% carbohydrates, 10% protein, 10% fat.
If they are uncooked also, if they're cooked, cooked in the sense boiled, then also it remains like that, right?
It remains like that. The only thing is that some of the vitamins and minerals might get killed in while the cooking process. When they're subject to heat, some of it might get killed. That is the only thing.
Okay. Then if we take raw vegetables, fruits, and grains like that, then we have 80%, 10%, and 10%.
Yeah, even if you cook, you will get 80%, 10%, 10%. That nutritional profile will not change. But in terms of the minerals and the micronutrients, right? The macronutrients will not change. The macronutrients is what is the carbohydrate, protein, and fat. That will be the same whether you cook it or not. But the micronutrients, the minerals and vitamins and the phytochemicals that is there in the raw foods will get, some of it will get killed when you cook them to high temperature. That is why it is recommended. But there are some fruits and there are some vegetables which we cannot eat raw. Like for instance, the potato we cannot eat raw, right?
Yes.
Or for instance, eggplant we cannot eat raw, right? So those kind of foods we have no choice, but we have to cook them and eat. But there are other vegetables, a lot of vegetables which can be eaten raw, like a cabbage or a cauliflower or a carrot or a cucumber, right? All of those vegetables you can eat raw. Even corn you can eat raw. But there are some vegetables you have to cook them. You have no choice. You have to cook them, like potatoes and the eggplant, right? Even the greens like the spinach. The spinach also, because in America you get good organic greens, right? So those you can automatically eat raw. There is no need to cook those vegetables. When you eat raw, it is really very, very good for you. Very good for you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Okay. Sharada Bhagini, I kind of muted you because I was getting some background noise. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute. Okay. So this body is a vehicle in which you have to spend your entire life, right? And if you're not giving the body the proper fuel, the body needs the fuel to be functional. If you're not giving the body the right kind of fuel, then what happens? If you're giving it kerosene instead of gasoline, then it is going to have malfunction, right? It's going to not function properly. So if you're supposed to live 80 years and by taking the wrong food, then you're reducing your lifespan, right? And then you have to resort to medications. So we don't want to get into that state. We want to keep our body pristine, in a pristine condition. We want to give the body the best fuel that we can make to make it run as well as it can, right? So that the food is like the medication for us. The food is like the medication for the body because it makes the body function properly. So we do several things to keep the body in a best condition and to keep the mind sharp, and the Sattvik Ahara is one of them. Also we talked about the yogasanas, right? We have to live in this world. We have to do the mundane work, right? But even then, when you take proper food, then the mind will be very, very sharp. It will be sharp not only at this age, even when people become 65, 70, 80, to the age of 100, there will be no instance of dementia, right? Nobody should have dementia in this world, right? Nobody. So a lot of people, they lose their memories. These things happen to a lot of people when they get older, right? But this should not happen. So when you take proper diet and when you do the yogasanas and all that, your body will be in a pristine condition, right? So nowadays you see lifestyle related diseases. People get diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, and all of this. All of those things people get by feeding body the kerosene, feeding kerosene instead of gasoline, right? So if you think the body is a machine, then by feeding the wrong foods, people get all of these lifestyle degenerative diseases, chronic diseases, chronic degenerative diseases people get by taking wrong diet, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, cancer, dementia. All of these things, they all come in the same category. If you eat the yogic food, you're not going to get any of those things, right? People say that, if you ask anybody, I have diabetes, somebody says I have diabetes, then say, oh no, I didn't do anything wrong, it is there in my genes, it runs in my family. No, it doesn't run in the family. It is not in your genes. It is because of the wrong foods that you were eating. That is why somebody gets diabetes. So what runs in your family is not diabetes. What runs in your family is the way you eat. Your ancestors have been eating it, and you have also been eating the same way. And in fact, nowadays it's even worse. People eat packaged food and whatnot, right? So none of these diseases are in your genes. These are not inherited from the genes. That is, it is just an accusation. It is that it is like accusing Paramapurusha, that the buddhi behind this universe, who designed this universe, right? It's just basically accusing Paramatma, saying that, oh, you have designed these bodies imperfectly, right? When you say it is in the genes, when you say I got diabetes, I got blood pressure because it's in the genes, you're basically accusing Paramatma. You're saying that you designed my body imperfectly. That's not true, right? It is because this doesn't run in my family. What runs in my family is the way I have been eating. I've been eating wrong foods, right? Nobody has it in their genes. So that is why if somebody who has diabetes, and if they follow the Sattvik Ahara, they can reverse their diabetes, right? So what they inherited from their family was the way of eating and not their genes. The genes are all perfectly fine. Nothing's wrong with the genes. The problem is with the food. That is the number one problem. So we talked about company products. Any questions about the company products? Okay, so okay, I would like to stop over here. If you guys have any questions or comments, you're welcome to share. Okay. Anybody who wants to share any experience, you are welcome to do that. Whenever you have tried and you want to share your experience, you're most welcome to do that. Yes, Bhagini, Sharda Bhagini.
Do we get vitamins in the Sattvik food? I mean, enough vitamins in the Sattvik food? Do we need to take any supplements?
Yeah, so there's a good question. So when you take generally when you take the vegetarian diet, the one thing that people get deficient is the vitamin B12, right? Vitamin B12. So you can take a vegan vitamin B12 supplement. From the vegetarian diet itself, you don't get vitamin B12, right? So people can get deficient in that. So you can take a vegan vitamin B12 supplement. And also if people are not exposing themselves to adequate sunlight, They can also become deficient in vitamin D, so that also they can take a vegan supplement.
Thank you.
But other than that, people do not get deficient in anything, because I have done my blood work many times. I have not gotten deficient in anything. It is perfectly fine. So by taking the Sattvik Ahara, I have not got people say, I need oil for lubrication and all that. I have not had any problem. It is actually very surprising to me. I was also surprised. I've not had oil at all, and maybe I will have some deficiency. No, I did blood work several times, and they were all perfectly fine. In fact, they were a much better improvement of what was there before. Right, everything, all the metrics improved drastically. So I don't get deficient in any vitamins or minerals. The only thing is the vitamin B12 supplement.
Protein?
Yeah. Protein, you get enough protein from the fruits and vegetables, and if you want even more protein, you can take little bit of nuts. That is more than enough for what your body needs. You don't need any additional protein. For energy, you need adequate carbohydrates in your body. Right, for proper functioning of the body, you need carbohydrates. You need protein for your tissues, and that protein you can get from plant-based diet.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll wind up over here. Thank you so much. Namaskara, dhanyavadah.
धन्यवादः भगिनी.
नमस्कारः, धन्यवादः.
नमस्कारः.
धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.